and a warm welcome to our 2021 Automotive Digital Summit. Let's head into the office. Many of you joined us when we held our special event in London last year, but very few of us would have predicted the year ahead. So here we are today in a very unusually quiet London, organizing the event in our own office and looking forward to meeting you in person again. The topic today is e-commerce, that buzzword which seems to be in every discussion. And we have a fantastic lineup of speakers to discuss this topic, from Jaguar Land Rover, Opel, Polestar, BMW and Carwow. We will also be sharing some unique insight from our eDataXchange partnership. And thank you to those of you who filled out our pre-event survey, which basically confirmed what we already know, that 80% of you are unhappy with the current customer journey, which is an extreme number considering the amount of resources and effort we're putting into getting this customer journey right. We are on a tight 60-minute schedule today, so I will hand over to my colleague Patrick Fuller, who will introduce our first guest. Over to you, Patrick.
Thanks a lot, Scott, and it's great to see you without that green screen for once. So, our first speaker is Christian Loeer, Marketing Director for Land Rover Jaguar Germany. Christian has worked at a number of Europe's biggest car brands and is helping to drive forward JLR's digital transformation strategy, including that ambitious plan to electrify Jaguar by 2025. His step one, being prepared to disrupt yourself.
Yeah, I guess the main point is really, if we had foreseen what happened in the last 12 months, I guess that's what we all think every day when we wake up in the morning. But of course, with all the changes and challenges we had in the last 12 months, and with all the terrible tragedies we had in our lives, I think there was also a positive tweak to it, which obviously is the change. A lot of change happened, and I think a lot of change happened and will stay for good. Just if we think about how things in the digital arena accelerated over the past 12 months, we saw changes where in a normal decade would have probably taken a decade, and they took rather a few months. And obviously in the car industry, we experienced similar changes in a very short time period. That's number one, I think, a stronger digitalization, in the cars, but most prominently, certainly in media, but also in the way we embrace technology when people are searching, exploring, and buying a car. And secondly, clearly, is how people embrace sustainability. We saw an enormous growth in the purchase of electric vehicles, whether it's plug-in hybrids or electric cars. So the last 12 months have really accelerated that digital customer journey, as well as the embracing electrification when buying cars. So those are the two main changes we experienced in the last 12 months. For us at JLR, we very quickly discovered where the online journey could be improved, where we needed to introduce new technologies such as a stock locator, where you could easily find the right car on the web rather than kind of searching for retailers having the right inventory, having things like reservation function, down payment, or simple things like video live chat, which for many retailers obviously is a lifesaver in a pandemic situation where the showrooms are closed. So being able to find the car of your choice on the web in a stock locator, being then able to have a live video chat with a sales rep at the retailer and having a virtual walk off the car of your choice is probably the most powerful thing you can have in a lockdown situation. That's something we have embraced not quickly enough, I have to say. We're now rolling this out very quickly. And we see also that the retailers have dramatically changed and embraced that change now to have a more omni-channel approach to servicing the customer. I fundamentally believe we're just starting the journey on the digital part, right? So, and I think we need to look at two things. Number one is what do we want to really give that to our customers? And our mission obviously is to give customers an experience they love for life, whether that's in the car, in the physical product, in the way it drives, in the way it feels when you're inside. But obviously the whole journey to get to that car, whether it's the search and exploration phase on the web from a configurator to get a quote. I think we will always have the desire to bring the customers in physical contact with our luxurious product at some stage before they purchase it, because I think that's part of the reward why you want to get a Land Rover or a Jaguar. It is something special. It is something for people that are rather different and individualists. So we believe that is really part of what we can give to the customer. And at the same time, I believe we could also do that digitally, right? So more so even after the pandemic, I believe people will want to have a digital journey they can do at home. And they also want to feel that premiumness that I just described in a physical environment in a digital journey. So I think we have a long way to go, to be very open and honest. Especially when we think about our more luxurious products like SVO, we do bespoke Range Rovers and F-types, so you can really customize the car to your personal taste, choose your individual color and things like that. Think about augmented reality. You could easily do that from your iPad. Great technologies out there, and I believe there's lots we can explore to make that journey also on the digital side as rewarding as it is when you walk into one of our retailers. When we started the journey 3 years ago, I mean, we didn't know how much of an advantage it's going to be. So we only really benefit from it now, having that advantage being two almost 3 years earlier than most other mainstream premium brands. And yeah, it's great. And in many ways, we also learn on the digital side. So not so much thinking about digital in terms of campaigns and marketing, but more, if you take an I-Pace or any electric car, it's very much software driven, right? It was our first car that had software over the air. It's very much not only car of the year in Europe or Germany because it has a battery and has great drive, but also it's a great software product, and it's really a digital device on four wheels, so to speak. And that clearly gives us a head start in the digital race for sure. I think we as JLR, but I think the whole industry has lots of potential with electrification and digitalization. So just taking the simple example of the iPhone, right? So in 2007, the iPhone made a user manual completely redundant, right? So Apple said, well, it's going to be so simple and intuitive, you don't need to use a manual. And I think that's a simplification, a way of interacting that we can still improve, to be perfectly honest. Whether it's buying a car, whether it's owning a car or operating a car, it's still a fairly complex thing if you compare it to an iPhone. And perhaps one of the challenges we should accept as an industry is that, actually buying, owning, or even leasing or subscribing to a car shouldn't be more complex than doing the same with an iPhone. So I believe, the digitalization will help us to make that user experience and journey in the car, but also buying, owning, or even renting a car, make that a lot easier, more intuitive, more seamless. So I think in that area, there's a lot of ground to be made. Secondly, when we think about the digital journey in terms of our website presence, dealer website presence, I think we'll see a lot more tools, and we have to embrace them much faster, as we learned in the pandemic. So we should have embraced video live chat a year ago, I guess, and we're now falling behind. Other technologies like augmented reality, for us as a luxury brand, doing bespoke cars, for example, makes a lot of sense, and I think there's a lot of ground to be covered in a hopefully much shorter time than we did in the past. And obviously the same applies to user experience from, say, a Jaguar Land Rover national website to a dealer website. So that still isn't as seamless as you'd expect. And clearly that's sort of the simplification, the seamless journey we still have to improve going forward, yeah. traditionally you have that salesperson sitting behind the desk waiting for a customer to come in, or of course whether he sits or he's in the showroom, but certainly he's more in a passive state of mind, waiting for a customer to come in, or at least sort of working on the list of leads to bring people in. And I think that will change dramatically, and it has already changed in the last 12 months. The salesman becoming more a hunter that leaves the showroom, not necessarily physically, but digitally, right? So we see more and more that dealers actually go out and hunt customers in the web, whether it's the third-party platforms, whether it's certain CRM techniques, whether it's campaigning, but it's really going out, affinity groups, certain target audience platforms, going out, getting prospects, leads in, and then finding ways to not just getting them physically into the showroom, but obviously if you hunted some lead or prospect on the web, obviously you want to have a seamless experience, and that's where, for example, a video live chat may come in handy to engage with the customers almost on a personal basis, whether it's through a screen or then ideally over the phone conversation, making an appointment and then getting people really physically in the showroom. I think that's what we experienced very strongly in the last 12 months. We have dealers embracing that change, and I believe it's going to stay for a long time, and it's going to accelerate. I think we can learn from those platforms. The transaction, how we're going to do it, we'll have to learn. I have to see what our customers respond to. I believe again that not our products are just different, but our customers are different, and will respond to transacting cars online differently than the majority. And I'm sure we'll try different ways of transacting, from just a down payment or reservation function to transacting all the way. And it's ultimately not us to decide as an industry or as a car manufacturer. It's ultimately the customer that decides which way is most convenient. And as we say, convenience always wins. I have to say that we, in the last two to 3 years, we've become really digital driven by the, say, standard web analytics KPIs. I mean, in a nutshell, we measure the entire purchase funnel through digital. I mean, all the way from simple unique visitors all the way to leads. And then obviously we correlate this both with sales, but also with the amount of media or marketing in general we spend. So we have a great tracking and history of that data, and we can now really predict an order pipeline within a 4 to 6 week prediction accuracy, I would say. So it's really become our lifeblood for the sales business almost in a national sales company operation. And as I said, I mean, the key numbers we're driven by is obviously the traffic on the website, not just sheer quantity, but more the engagement really. So especially focusing on configurations and dwell times. So what do people look at, configure, and how do they interact, which obviously has a brand element to it, right? So we want people to engage with our brand on the website as they do with our products. So we monitor that closely, and what can we improve on our website journey, all the way down to how we convert leads from the website and how we're doing that. And obviously, apart from that, we look at how strong the pull versus the push is, right? So just the sheer quantity of the just described purchase funnel traffic may be misleading if I have to push it with a lot of money behind it. So we always look at organic traffic as well, trying to understand what momentum the brand has by itself without me pushing a lot of marketing dollars behind it. And another strong metric we look, especially important for us as a premium brand, is social media. And that's really for us the big growing area, where we even see now even say slightly older demographics moving strongly into things like Instagram and LinkedIn. That's double-digit growth every year in terms of followers, and obviously that becomes a prime source of understanding our customers now. ultimately we have to disrupt that ownership experience a little bit, otherwise we get disrupted. So if you take the phone, I mean, people just got used to having a flat rate and having a phone subscription, and a phone is probably the digital device they interact most with. Any one of us does, and I believe we as a car industry will have to follow that path. Ideally, we become leaders in that path, and that includes things that we change the ownership. So the simplification I just mentioned using the iPhone example, or the simplification when we speak about what does owning a car mean? Do I have to have a 3-digit £1,000 amount on my bank account, or can I just rent, lease, subscribe? How flexible can it be? I guess the answer is already there when we look at phone subscription schemes. So I think we will have to change that ownership as well to something more flexible and something more in line with what people expect these days. Yeah.
Christian made an interesting point about the importance of EVs to the JLR strategy, and that's consistent with what we have seen in eDataXchange. EVs grew both digital and sales market share consistently from the start of the pandemic, topping out in December with an audience share of more than 10%. This was driven by key launches from Volkswagen, Ford, Mini, and PSA. In Q1, that continued with one of Hyundai Europe's biggest ever audience spikes, with the launch of the Ioniq 5.
Another interesting trend that we've seen here is that the online car buyer engagement rose to record levels in both the early and late lockdowns thanks to small audiences and the high concentration of in-market buyers. When the lockdown eased in summer last year, engagement reduced significantly, and we would encourage brands to prepare for the same thing to happen this year as vaccination programs take effect.
We'll be back with more data insights later on.
For our next slot, we're going to be joined by our chief analyst, Tania Hodgkinson, who, as many of you know, lives in the mountains near Munich, where she joins us live.
Hi there.
As we've heard, the past 12 months have been a steep learning curve for many of us, and the Sophus3 eDataXchange partnership has provided a unique perspective on which changes are temporary and which we think might be permanent. It's clear that automotive consumers have been quick to adapt to this unprecedented situation, and after an initial plunge in digital traffic, audience numbers quickly bounced back. In fact, by the summer, visits to car brand sites were actually up year on year, although that is no longer the case as second and third waves have hit. The return of lockdowns in the autumn, with car retailers again closed in many markets, saw audiences shrink, but by not nearly so much as in the spring. And by the end of the year, car brands in Europe had seen an average loss in traffic of about 12% year on year, which, although significant, was not as bad as some had predicted in those dark months of March, April and May. And as Tania is about to tell us, that didn't really explain the whole story.
That's right, Patrick. And the fascinating thing is, what did not change as much as what did. The proportion of visitors who we classify as in-market, or in other words, those who visit funnel landing pages such as the car configurator or the request for a quote pages, was almost identical in lockdown to what we would have expected in normal times. Initially, it was the same story with bounce rate, page views and dwell time as well, which were largely unaffected despite the lower audience numbers. That is not to say that these metrics are static. We should just make it clear that the long-term trend towards lower attention span and less loyalty is very much still alive. It's also true that the relentless migration to mobile, which grew another 8% in 2020, a reminder that people still behave in the same way, even when they have a choice of devices in their home.
So if browsing habits have remained roughly constant, what types of cars have people been looking at over the past 12 months? Our exclusive breakdown of website visits by vehicle type clearly shows that the love affair with the SUV has not diminished, accounting for an amazing 45% of all vehicle model page views. But again, it hides the big story of the year, the explosion of interest in electric vehicles. In fact, online share for EVs in the Big Five outstripped the growth in interest for SUVs for the first time. We also saw an immediate uplift in EV traffic when the German and French governments announced subsidies at the beginning of June, which was one of the factors behind the growth in consumer interest in the Sophus3 EV Index, which is our measure of how EV-ready each European country truly is, based on a range of metrics including digital market share, infrastructure and affordability. It also led us to improve the granularity of our reporting of EV models, as Tania can now explain.
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that many clients are asking for more detail on electric vehicle trends, and in particular the different buying patterns between pure EVs and plug-in hybrids. From the start of this year, our tagging specialist Aga Simonovic has implemented a key change to our model classification algorithm, and that allows us to differentiate between these models and determine whether plug-in hybrids are seen by the customer as merely a stepping stone to full EV or something more permanent. It speaks to just one of the many challenges for digital marketeers as technology steers customers into new habits. For example, there were 1.4 billion views of car brand content on YouTube in the Big Five last year, which for some was more than the brand's own website audience. Yet many have not yet embraced video and still offer their customers tired and out-of-date content.
Yes, exactly. One sector which is getting video right is Europe's specialist automotive publishers, many of whom are now part of the eDataXchange partnership. Car brands need to learn from the way in which these marketplace platforms manage the car buyer using authentic, believable content. And we've created an index in our new monthly report that reveals how brands rank for share of voice on these independent consumer sites. It builds on Sophus3 analysis that shows how customers are more likely to buy after seeing independent editorial reviews and transparent pricing, including one project we did with a leading European marketplace, which revealed uplifts of up to 300% in engagement and conversion to sale.
That was a big number, and it reminded us why it's so important to keep learning in digital. This year, we've built a new measurement framework that brings together both digital and business objectives, helping car brands to break down internal silos and pull in the same direction. We call it our one KPI language for all. It addresses the need organizations now have to manage complexity by adopting a systemic perspective, not only in their way of reporting, but in their way of making sense of the changing landscape. Nothing illustrates this need better than the analysis we carried out comparing the top performing brands against the bottom. Of the 10 best performers, no fewer than 8 offered live chat or video live chat, creating a connection that is no longer possible in the showroom. What's more, half of them also offered a complete end-to-end online purchase facility. At the other end of the table, only 2 of the 10 brands that lost market share offered some kind of live chat interaction, and only 1 allowed customers to buy a car fully online.
It's amazing how clearly sales results have mapped to a brand's digital capability. It seems that the pandemic has divided businesses into 2 groups, those who have sacrificed commercial activity because of the lockdowns and those who have pivoted to succeed. Later, Scott will be sharing some of the findings of our latest white paper, which takes an audit of nearly 100 websites to identify digital best practice. And members of the eDataXchange project can also download our report, The Digital Car Buyer in Numbers 2021, which contains more detail on the data we have shared today. It is worth remembering, however, that this is not 2008, and we now have rental, leasing and subscription models to cushion the effects of an economic downturn. But again, this will favour brands that have the right back-office processes to fulfil customer expectations on the delivery of information, service and ultimately product. Our next keynote tackles just that and comes from not 1 but 3 highly experienced speakers from BMW, PSA and Polestar. Here is some of the wisdom that they have shared with us on digital best practice, and before I go, I'd just like to say thank you to Tania for joining us from Munich.
Thanks, Patrick.
I think it's a mutual work, and we have to work together with the dealers. Obviously, this is something which is changing with the customers. Customers says that in the research which I have seen, 54% of them, they prefer to buy online. And so this is a very strong signal, for us that we should be adapting to the customer needs. 2/3 of the customers are happy with the digital experience versus visiting dealers. So this all shows, that we have to adapt. We have to come closer to the customer, so what they need, what they want. On another side, so obviously from the business point of view, we have to find the good ways, how do we attract the customers to still buy with us, because another survey which I have seen speaks about 40% of the customers which are delaying the purchase due to the health concerns or waiting for discounts, or they are having a fears of reduced incomes. So all this needs kind of very good understanding, and the business models and the offers and the values which we are trying to sell to the customers, should be changed, should be adapted, in the new circumstances.
I do believe that almost everything, even in a wholesale setup, is in place that you could buy your car from your couch. Because let's think. I was lucky enough to put a little bit of stock into a DocuSign or something. So you have those providers out there that do all the e-signature part virtually. So you trade in and you can do that all. So I think you can go down that route, and we're trying to pursue that as well. And I think the big issue is in a wholesale model, you always have that pricing part, because you will never have that final price, or you could get close to it, but you don't have, price is determined by the dealer, and that makes it a bit more complicated. But I think that definitely is possible, and the road down the route. You just basically extend it module by module. That's you can go to down payment, but you can do much more.
You're asking them to go somewhere where they don't go for any other type of shopping. It's only to go there to visit a car dealership. It is an intimidating place to walk into. And then you add on to that the pressure that almost every manufacturer works on wholesaling into dealers. Therefore, the stock comes into the dealer has to sell the stock. So I've spent a lot of time as a customer researching my car. I've decided on which car I'm going to buy, and I walk into the dealer, and the salesperson's got an incentive to sell the 15 red ones that have been wholesaled into him the last week. So never mind the fact that I've researched black and that's the color I want. The first thing that salesperson is going to try and do is persuade me that what I really want is a red one, and here's $5,000 off it. Now, I don't think that's a great customer experience. What we did is say, right, let's take the commission-paid salespeople out of the equation. Let's have it run by car dealers who understand the business, but let's say to them, I want product experts in there, and they're not going to be paid commission because they're not signing the customer up. No customer who walks into a Polestar space is going to get an order form placed under their nose. They're not going to be put under any pressure. What they will meet is someone who knows the product inside out, who can listen to what it is they want. Are they there for 5 minutes? I've just popped in, I just wanted a quick overview of the car. Great, we'll give you a quick overview of the car in 5 minutes, and then you can get on with your shopping.
Before I go to a dealer, I'm going to go online. I can compare cars very easily, brands very easily, narrow it down, and then, I think that is an accepted part of the funnel. I think numbers, statistics that we all see show that 90%, 80% of people go online first. So that's something that just, I think, is intensified. What I find interesting is that our website was very much positioned more as an information and marketing platform. And I'm not even sure how well we did in the informational part sometimes, because coming from marketing, you often show beautiful pictures and so forth. Your showroom, your virtual showroom is more a beautiful brochure. And what we learned from the data and from feedback and everything, that customers want much more hard facts also. They want to compare, they want to know if that car fits into their garage. So we're really changing the narrative there and becoming much more to the point. Also, how do we integrate maybe other sources? Because there's so many sources out there, YouTube videos, the magazine you just showed me. How do we get that together? So I think that's one thing that's really changed. Let's be also fact-based, and you can do it in a fun way. The configurator, always this neurological, center point. You will always need that one, even in a build-to-order market, a build-to-stock market. You have that. And then I think what has fundamentally changed is now to continue that journey and say, not only am I interested in a car, but I can finish the entire process online if I want to.
What we are doing in the moment, we are basically changing traditional kind of sales funnel, which we were managing for years. Since I started working in Opel Europe, I was responsible for managing the sales channel, and basically this is from the generating some traffic and putting the people into the digital space, and then trying to engage them with different tools like configurators, stock monitors, finance calculators. Then we are trying to capture those people in the digital space with the forms and then push them into the lead management, and the dealer is taking their role. So basically what we did here and what we are doing here is that we are cutting the funnel on half, and after the engagement, so we want to capture that contact. So we want to grab them immediately. And the good companies are doing that through different communication tools like video chat, because I think especially video chat is providing absolutely good experience in this moment. We are really bringing our showrooms and the humans through the video chat directly to the homes, to the rooms, to the to the families, where they could experience, where they could talk and chat. So. And here we have really good experience, especially from UK, where we have lots of customers, happy customers, using this opportunity to speak and have the direct video presence into the showrooms.
I think that is the biggest difference. So I think if you say what have we've reinforced our CRM teams, we've introduced more chat technology so that people can liaise directly, and we're seeing more and more of that communication now happening via chat than was going on before. So I think that was our big learning over the period, that actually the customer wants communication, but they want communication on their terms. And I think that the automotive industry hasn't been very good at that. The automotive industry, from an OEM point of view, has been very much about push. Here's the information we're going to send to you at a time that we want to send it. You become very quickly aware that actually some of the requirements from the customers are different timescales and different levels of information. And I think we're still on a learning curve, Patrick. It's for us to sit there after we've been up and live for not even 12 months yet in terms of handing cars over. For us to say we've got everything right would be enormously arrogant and completely untrue.
Let's think about how long have people been buying online. I think I just recently saw on my Amazon account that now they tell you how long you've been a member, just like American Express, and on mine it said 2000. So it's a long time ago, and so also in industries like ours, that trend has been going on for a long time, but it always ended abruptly once you decided this is the car I'm interested in. And you are catapulted more into the 90s, where there's a form and then you fill out the form, and then with good dealers you do get a follow-up quite quickly, but there's been it's just been in the inquiry phase where we were very much present, and I think that's what's fundamentally changing now.
The key focus of the company first and foremost is the customer, and an awful lot of companies that say, oh yeah, we're about customer focused. Well, they're not. They play at lip service, but how often does the CEO of the global company talk to customers? Well, our CEO is talking to them every day. He's responding to them. He's directly there because he's available digitally online, and they want to ask him questions and discuss it with him. So I think that if your focus is customer, and you look at where the customer is today and where they're going to be for the foreseeable future, are we going to go back to everyone in the office 9 to 5? I don't think we are after the last 12 months. I think people are going to work increasingly from home. Digital is going to be more and more important.
and they want to be able to find out the information about your company digitally, order their goods digitally, so that they can actually do that. And therefore, all the focus that we put in from day one was the digital way.
If you look one of the reports which was provided by Sophus at the summit which we had this year early, I think it was in February, we see what is the journey of the customer. So they move left, right. They visit the brand sites, they visit competitor sites, they visit the third-party sites, they visit the dealer sites. So obviously, that's the journey we have to respect, and we have to provide proper quality and informations and values for customers to stay with us and buy online. Always what I see is that everybody in discussions, they're starting discussion with enablers, with the platforms, So I think that's wrong, because first of all, we have to understand the customer. Customer is the king, So, and if the customer is behaving on a certain way, and he's asking and requesting certain services, certain values online, we have to follow that. And then build the business story, understanding, what we are communicating, giving them why they should buy online. And if we understand them, if we give them and provide them these values, they will follow us, they will buy from us. And this is, but this is where I see the big field for improvements for many companies on the markets, not only automotive.
Fascinating stuff. Human interaction is still essential for most car buyers, according to our analysis of live chat and live chat videos across eDataXchange brands. The average dwell time of those who engage with live chat is almost 3 times than those who just visit. For buyers shopping for an EV, that is further doubled to an amazing average of 14 minutes compared with non-EV buyers.
Another insight comes from our work with premium publishers that shows that authentic editorial content has significant multiplier effect on customer engagement. Visitors to car brand sites are up to 300% more likely to engage with funnel tools such as Request for Quote if they have first visited a new car marketplace, and their path to conversion is significantly shorter. Here at Sophus3, we are really excited to see what the rest of 2021 brings.
What we've heard so far has painted a consistent picture of digital acceleration in the automotive sector, which, despite suffering a drop of 25% in registration, has grasped this unprecedented opportunity to develop its relationship with its customers. Our data reveal that an amazing 75% of buyers have remained in market during lockdown, but only for those car brands who have had the digital tools to communicate effectively. While click-to-buy has become familiar in most retail sectors, automotive has been slow to follow, sometimes because of the nature of the product, which is high value and built to order, but also because of the failure of our engineering-driven multinational to transition effectively to digital. We know that the car purchase process has a lot of moving parts, ranging from the choice of a specific vehicle through to test drive, finance, and delivery. At every step, the buyer wants to be reassured that they are being offered the best possible deal. We, at Sophus3, decided to create a detailed snapshot of e-commerce in the automotive sector, examining the purchase journey from the customer's point of view and scoring each website on its ability to answer questions, provide information, and assist the customer in their purchase journey. Our study, carried out in Q1 2021, covered 20 brands across the big 5 European markets, from premium to volume to budget. In total, 100 websites were assessed by our teams of analysts against a list of key features to produce a score indexed against the average for each market. For example, does your site have a direct sales capability, a personalized customer journey, and interaction such as live chat and live chat video? We also ask basic questions of the configuration and test drive process and whether a customer can trade in an existing vehicle. Finally, we assessed how much of the transaction could be completed online. The results shocked us. Not only did we see variation between the big 5 markets, but also a patchy performance across the majority of brands and very few examples of best practice. From a country perspective, the UK performed best thanks to the number of buy it now features, user-friendly configurators, and prominent use of live chat, including video and virtual showroom functionalities. Across the other countries, the difference was small. But at a brand level, when we combined scores from across the 5 markets, the results were fascinating. The top 2 scoring brands were Mercedes-Benz and Dacia, manufacturers at the opposite end of the premium budget spectrum. Both of them rated highly because of the effort they have put into making their site transaction ready, even though their consumers' proposition are very different. They also score highly because of the consistency in implementation across every market. Mercedes and Dacia display the option to purchase prominently, both across their site and at the level of specific model pages. Both offer live chat interaction, although in Dacia's case, not yet with video in every market, and both perform very well on clarity and simplicity. Other brands were penalized because of key features were missing or because of poor usability, such as overly long forms and complicated explanation. Statistically, we found that features that were missing the most from individual websites were a Buy It Now button on model pages, a link to a purchase page with the site's global navigation, and the availability of a video as part of the live chat interaction. Our study is designed to offer a framework for you to assess the e-commerce performance of your digital channels. Not 2 brands are alike, and many of you will want to weigh functionalities and features in your own way. But you should also ask yourself the question, is this what the customer wants or simply what we've always done? For example, many brands have invested heavily in configurator technology to build a hyper-realistic virtual car. Yet, Tesla, a brand often cited as a leader in a direct-to-consumer strategy, doesn't even offer this feature on its site. So what have we learned in the past 12 months? Our study showed that a true understanding of e-commerce is both relevant and achievable for all segments of the market. Brands should assess their own website to fill in any gaps to achieve transactional readiness. Brands should also look at their operational capabilities in more depth. For the typical customer, that is as much about their personal experience as it should be about digital functionality, such as the quality of information received during a live chat or the transparency of pricing options. Today's car buyer wants to be seen as an individual, whose needs have been understood and responded to. And this is determined by a company's operational and back-office capabilities. Put yourself in the customer's shoes and ask yourself how well you would manage each interaction across a complex array of touchpoints. We urge you to test your assumption by benchmarking against your competitors, something we can support through the eDataXchange partnership, which provide a unique view of what today's car buyer wants in digital. A full write-up of our study, including a league table of brands' performance, will be available for participants after this event, and as ever, Sophus3 is available with the data and insight to assist you in maximizing the value of your online assets. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Scott. Before we go to our final keynote, we wanted to announce our latest eDataXchange collaborative project that will address a key challenge for the marketing professional, namely consent-free analytics. The Sophus3 client technology team, one of the most experienced in the industry, is close to creating an accurate way to measure digital market share across European brands without the need for consent. We look forward to telling you more about that in the coming months. And so to our final speaker of this 2021 summit, Sepi Arani, who is head of OEM at Carwow, one of the most significant new car marketplaces in Europe. Sepi, who has also worked at Audi in the UK and Germany, has a clear vision for a buying process that works for both buyer and seller, starting with a simple mantra: innovation through partnership.
Volvo UK is a prime example of one such brand that in the face of retailers being forced to essentially close their doors, worked with us to endorse the value of Carwow to its network, and in fact going one step further to actively fund and onboard its retailers onto our platform. And at the same time, they've had one of their best years of performance too, and I think that's no doubt in part down to their sort of innovative and open approach to partnerships. Coming back to that full service marketplace, ultimately we all want a one-stop shop. You don't want to be going to multiple different sites and having a super fragmented journey. So I think that's played to our advantage, and that is one of our strengths. Whether you engage with us through YouTube, on our video content, come across the site for written content, or want to see your closest retailer, pricing information, reviews, all the way through to messaging a retailer, we provide that. We track a huge amount of data points on our website, but the one purpose and goal of tracking those data points is to make useful and valuable recommendations to the journey. There's no point putting a product in front of someone that is either way out of their price range or just simply isn't of interest to them. So we ensure that the more we learn about you as you progress through our website, the more receptive and valuable the recommendations that we give become. There's two very distinct stages across our digital sort of estate. You have the written reviews, you have our video content that is easily engaged with. There's no requirement to sign up at all, can be easily found. And then you have the transition to when someone moves into the purchase process. As soon as a user completes a configuration, which is essentially a condensed version of a manufacturer's configurator, still has all the options, but we streamline the process and remove all of the mandatory steps. You still have the options to configure all the options you want, but it's not mandatory. You couldn't just skip it. When you finish that configuration and you want to get to pricing, that exact configuration that you have, not generic pricing for a model, but the exact configuration that you've put together and your closest retailers, is when we have the value exchange. We ask users to sign up, register, verify their account, and in exchange, we serve them pricing information, location of retailers, and reviews of retailers. And then the next step from that being choosing to inquire with a retailer. For us, that's quite critical, and that differentiates someone in the early research phase to someone that we define as in market. And again, the definition of in market is super broad, right? For us, our average registered user is about 24 days away from purchase. Now, averages hide a great deal of extremes, so take that with a pinch of salt. But the average user is 24 days away from purchase. And those interacting on the research side, we see as anything between sort of 9 months for an EV, all the way down to 24 days away from purchase. Another assumption that Campbell's had, and it's crazy how easy it is to compare tomato sauce to the auto industry after 12 months of lockdown, is that originally brands thought that the way to give a user what they want and essentially make them happy is to give them the most authentic version of that product or experience. So in the case of tomato sauce, it's a very thin, no solids, how it's made back home in Italy, I assume. But in fact, that's not what American consumers wanted at all. The most popular being the thick and chunky, which definitely isn't the history of tomato sauce as it was created. And I think the same applies to the buying journey. We see a lot of brands looking to emulate every single step of the traditional, in-person car buying journey online. We don't need to do that. Why are we using what is a super archaic, legacy system with legacy partners and processes and trying to replicate that online? This is a chance for us to start fresh and really think about what is it we can offer users? How can we make the buying experience great instead of just trying to translate, offline into online? The role of human interaction in the sales funnel should be as much or as little as that consumer that's in the journey at that one point in time wants it to be. If you should not mandate a user or a consumer to have to go down a certain path. You should give them the flexibility, essentially to be traveling forward across essentially a horizontal funnel. If they want to go into a loop of going online to offline, seeing a car in person, but then come back into the main journey, they should have that choice. I think that the biggest, some brands think they do this, but realistically it's a one-way street. Once you exit the online journey and you have human interaction, say you go into a retailer to physically test drive a vehicle, you're then expected to carry on offline for the rest of that process. So they will serve you the finance document. They want you to sign and read in person. However, realistically, most users, at best, if they want to test drive the vehicle, if they still do, would like to read the finance documents in the comfort and convenience of their own home and sign it, at home. there's not a lot of option to do that. It's either one or the other at the moment. And once you switch from one, you're on the other path and there's no way of going back. A real positive brand experience would allow you to seamlessly switch between both. The really interesting thing for me is if you're bogged down by legacy systems, process, and networks as a traditional brand, how do you use that to your advantage? How can you turn the sheer scale, size, and therefore limited speed of your international organization to your advantage versus a fast-moving competitor? How do you balance years of history, brand history that you've worked tirelessly to build, to quickly also turn and compete as what we look for in our vehicles changes? In the UK, we have such a high penetration of vehicles on essentially what is already a subscription model, PCH. It's just a longer term length. Most PCH contracts, minimum term is 24 months, through to 36, through to 48. We're already some way there towards it. All we're doing is chopping down that minimum length. And I think at the moment, subscription services sit awkwardly between traditional rental from the likes of Hertz or Avis or Enterprise, for example, and a 24-month PCH. I say awkwardly. I think the awkward part is price point at the moment. I think it's a real difficult challenge for brands that run subscription services directly, how to price them. You've got one channel which is selling your cars to rental channels, and you can't control the pricing, but Enterprise then puts it on for. You have your PCH channels through brokers, which again, you don't have direct control, but you do it to hit an overall volume target. So then if you don't have control of your two extremities, how do you price your product? I think there's a long way to go in terms of pricing of subscription models. I don't think we're there yet with a mass market offering. In terms of KPIs that we track, so there's lots of different KPIs. I think the most valuable KPI for our OEM and our network partners is the North Star of our inquiry to sales ratio. This for us, because we're essentially a closed loop, when we send an inquiry to a retailer, the retailer tells us this inquiry did or this inquiry did not lead to a sale in order to work out their ROI. Also helps us understand the different, the quality of the lead and sort of improve our journey. Understanding that inquiry to sale is fantastic, and I think really differentiates carwow. So we have retail partners because they play a huge role. It's not just on the inquiry, it's also on the retailer on how engaged they are, how quickly they get back to the customer, do they handle it in the right channel that dictates whether it converts to a sale. But we're extremely proud to work with retailers that convert our inquiries at essentially we've seen over 30%. So I think the highest we saw was 32%. Not all retailers convert at that level, and not all leads are of such high intent. But for me, that's fascinating. To deliver leads for what is, for most people, the second most expensive purchase you buy in your life, unless you buy a boat. At 30% is incredible, and that guides us. I think that really differentiates what a marketplace is, especially a full service marketplace as we've coined it, versus a hand raiser campaign or an affiliate campaign on a social network.
All that remains is for me to say a big thank you to our keynote speakers, but also to all of you for attending our first ever virtual summit, which has been great fun to create and we hope useful to you as you look ahead to the rest of 2021. Sophus3 is at its heart an analytics company that provide Adobe and Google Analytics services to the world's car brand. And it is those same skills that unlock the insight we've shared with you today. Our most important message to you, our clients and partners, is use our skills as much as you can. Our door is always open. Thank you very much for joining at 2021 Digital Automotive Summit. I really hope next year I will be able to serve you a cup of coffee in person. Take care and see you soon.